Hello, hello everyone. Great. I'm happy to welcome you all here at the Institute for Social Movements, the ISV here in Bochum, the Ruhr University, for this conference on cross-movement mobilization. Just in case you wonder, there's a camera and we will film this, and this will be put up on the YouTube ISA RC47 channel, so afterwards if you missed some important points and you want to re-watch it, so afterwards it's also possible to access this in this channel. Great. Let me just say one point at the beginning why I think this topic of cross-movement mobilization is a very important one to discuss, important for both political and scientific reasons. I only give you one point as we will have ample evidence, ample time to discuss it during the conference. And then I will give you some remarks on how the conference is going to proceed and what we will be doing the next couple of days. So, if you look around you, I think one thing we can observe at the moment is a lot of breaking of cooperation, the breaking of alliances and desolidarization instead of solidarity. You can observe this in neighborhoods, in cities, at the national and international level. For example, when we see people trying to help refugees and others trying to prevent those who help from helping, trying to mobilize against it and fight even with the neighbors about what to do or not to do. You see this in the debate with the Brexit right now, where organizations and individuals shift their positions and shift their political agendas and break off cooperation. You see this in the US right now with, on the one hand, you find new alliances against Trump, but also new splits and new cleavages in the societies. And you find it if you look at trade unions and international labor movement, a lot of reconsidering of shall we invest in international cooperation? Is it really worth the effort, or shall we either better downscale and really focus on our factories at the local level here? And this is taking place in a context where you see the continuing ongoing crises, you see multiple institutional failures, and you see an increasing disconnect between democratic institutions, although paradoxically they expand the opportunities to participate, but the feeling is that they don't connect back to the people any longer. And so the big hope, political hope, is by forming cross-movement alliances across different movements, and in particular alliances between the so-called new and the old, the labor movement alliances. This could be an opportunity to fight this development, to either stabilize those institutions which are in decay or create new ones, alternative ones to the capitalist development. And this is on one the hope, but on the other hand, this takes also place where, and I mean, it's not that it's not justified. If you look back on the history of both the labor and the social movements, it was a long history of success after World War II. You can say with T.H. Marshall and others, the labor movement has been particularly important in the creation of institutions and in the democratization of societies. And afterwards, I mean, interestingly, right at that moment when the trade unions, at least here in Western Europe, started to decline the trade unionism, you saw the rise of those so-called new social movements, having also a great success on democratizing procedures, institutions, creating a lot of alternative institutions, basically coexisting with the political institutions in what Peter Evans, we see him later, talked about a virtuous circle of positive reinforcing effects of democratizing societies and civil society coexistence. And it seems that since the crisis, but also earlier on, but the crisis just accelerated it, that it really turned into a vicious circle, a downward spiral where the political institutions increasingly democratize. If you look some of the labor scholars like Andreas Wieler and others, they talk of the rise of authoritarian capitalism in those terms. and also weakening then trade unions and social movements and making it difficult for them to operate and work. But on the other hand, there's this great hope that by forming these alliances, we might be able to turn this vicious circle again into a virtuous circle of positive reinforcement and democratization. So I think this is why it's really important to look into this topic and discuss it politically, but also scientifically. And if you think about social movements, and in particular the social movement scholars, yeah, well, of course, any alliance formation, come on, social movements are by definitions alliances. So what's the fuss? But I think it's social movement research in particular is not so much focused on asking why are certain groups cooperating with other certain groups, individuals or networks, and not with others, and why do those alliances break off. In other words, I think it's really important to look more into the reasons for cooperation, but also the mechanisms and processes on which alliances both locally, nationally and transnationally are formed. And this, if we go global and look into a broader context, and we have some debates also between, with including countries from the global south, or rather, let's say better, maybe from Latin America and Asia, and if we avoid this term, but you can say basically the Western Europe, with Brandon's words, is just following the West in terms of those institutions protecting societies that never been built there in the first instance. So it increases the necessity to form alliances across borders along global supply chains in this regard. So, the only thing, I think, for me, myself, which is a pity to me at this conference, is that I'm not Harry Potter and I don't have this magic clock where you can shift back time. Now I do it differently because this is so annoying. Okay. Where you can shift back time and be able to relive and go to those different panels after each other, because I think we have a lot of great panels during this conference and a lot of them are in parallel. But just let me briefly mention a few of them, because I think it's really great to discuss this topic of cross-movement mobilization from various disciplines, from a very interdisciplinary perspective. So we will have in the session from Margaret Meyer and David Scheller on cross-movement alliances in the city from a sociology of cities perspective. We will have the development perspective and the important question of alliances as co-optation by Shelley Feldman and Eva Gerhards. We will have a very interesting panel on alliance formation from the viewpoint of Polanyian perspective and Polanyian theorizing as a counter-movement. What is the potential of a counter-movement? And we will cover the issue of cross-movement alliances in a range of different areas against TTIP and trade agreements, against austerity politics, against global supply chains or along global supply chains. We will hear in Ilse Lenz's panel, who is also the AK leader of the gender movement studies, from the gender perspective and from the women's movement's perspective, the formation of alliances. So we will have all these different panels here at this conference, and I hope you enjoy meeting the people at your own panel, but also exchanging across different panels, which brings together sociologists, political scientists, and of course historians. We will have a historical panel which discusses the origins of the divide between the old and the new social movements, basically arguing that the new is a historical concept, so there will be a historical debate on this aspect here. And I mentioned this as this institute in particular here, and this is now where I come to say hello, and who's there and who's organizing this conference. I also want to welcome you in the name of Stefan Berger, who is the director of this institute. He can't be here today because, and he's really sincerely sorry about this, because he's evaluating the excellence initiative from the Finland Research Foundation, so he has to be in Finland at the moment for this evaluation. And this institute in particular tries to bridge the divide, maybe, or to integrate, let's better put it this way, to integrate a different perspective from labor and new social movement, which is also linked to the history of the institute, which was founded in the 80s as the Institute for the History of the Labor Movement. And with a decay, even in this area here in the Ruhr area in Bochum, the stronghold of the trade union movement and labor movement, it got relabeled in 1999 into the Institute of Social Movements, and since then we try to bridge both the historical perspective, so we have a lot of historical work on the labor movement and social movements in general, and the sociological and recent perspective on social movement studies here. The Institute for Social Movements is among only one of the organizers of this conference. The other one is the Institute for Protest and Social Movement Studies. Simon will tell you a little bit about it in a minute. And there's a long cooperation going on between both institutes on many ways. We had different, just to mention one, we had different summer schools organized together, and there will be one additional one on social movements this summer, this year. You find it also in your program. And the other one is the ISA RC47 network, the International Network on Social Movement Studies, Social Movement Classes. So Geoffrey Pleyers will tell you a little bit about it in a second. And one important element which made this conference possible was the Hans Böckler Foundation. You will hear a little bit about this too, because the Hans Böckler Foundation partially funded this conference, but they are also sponsoring the research group on social alliances of social movements and trade unions. And my three PhD students here, please stand up a little bit, because they put a lot of work in this conference preparing it. And so they will also help you out, of course and they will also help you out with any kind of questions you have, any kind of problems you might have, and consider, and so they know the way around and everything, and they will also help you, and they'll also be picking you up at the various locations and hotels tomorrow morning. I will mention it again soon. And I also want to mention Lisa Schönhoff. I guess you got some emails, or some of them got emails from her as well, because she was also helping in organizing the hotels and many other things. For the program tonight, after you hear about us from sitting at this panel now, we will have the opening discussion. Donatella wrote me yesterday night her flight got postponed. So she will be coming, but not now, and she will be only coming tomorrow. So the good thing is we do have an opportunity to talk, to listen to her presentation and to discuss with her. The bad thing is it will be Friday morning. And I had planned in a late start Friday morning at 10, because we do have to start early tomorrow, so I thought a nice sleep in on Friday would be good. But we shifted now and start at 9 o'clock at the university, and then we have 1 hour to discuss, to listen to Donatella's presentation and discuss with her for, like, let's say 40 minutes around this. And the room is the 610, yes, the 610. So it's in the university building, IC 03 610. It's not in the program, but we did put it online, if you want to recheck. Yes, great. So the only thing left for me to say now is tomorrow the first fun part you're allowed to do is to go a little bit on a treasure hunt. And I will tell you what the treasure hunt is. I can say, when you manage the treasure hunt, what you get, the treasure is that you will be able to listen to wonderful presentations in the morning and during the day. Because at the Ruhr University, the treasure hunt is actually to find the right building and the right room. So usually when you start working here, they say, you know, if you really want to become a professor here, the first thing you have to manage is you have to find the right room. That's the major test. When you can manage this, everything else will be fine. So I briefly show you so the conference tomorrow will be at the university, and this is our campus map, and you have this map also in your welcome maps. So Okay, dann funktioniert es doch. Also, so he will arrive. Now let me check where did he arrive. Here. This is the U-Bahn station, which is really good because it's really easy. It's the university line. It's really easy from the city to go to the university. It's super easy. It goes direct and it takes like 7 or 10 minutes. Our building where the conference is located, sorry, it's here. This one. It's this one. It's the IC. And actually, it's the building of the engineers, not the social scientists. So don't be surprised if you see lots of technical information and blah, blah, blah. But actually, our university wanted to do you a favor, or us a favor, and put you in this fancy building. And not into this crappy social scientist buildings, which are here. So they made sure to put us like in the most farthest possible distance so that you not even see how we work here, the social scientists in the university, because we get the fancy stuff. Okay, still, the thing is, these buildings are completely newly constructed. Fortunately, the building we are in is completely constructed, so it's there. It's just this building. This building is not really there, so you have to pass the construction site. And, or maybe this one. So the best thing to do it in the easiest way is to get off the station. We will put up signs, so that's why it is a little treasure hunt. So look for the signs. And there is a building you see, right? It says SSC. It's not the right building, but it points towards the right direction. And the good thing about this building is you can enter it and pass it because it's this one, and then you can walk down, 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 and come to our building. And the other good thing is it's also the information center with very, very helpful and very friendly people, and they really like to help you. They point you and everything. So just in case you're not so much into treasure hunts, just ask them for directions. And just in case you get lost or something, here are all our mobile phone numbers. It's also on the map. And you put down the list of the conference rooms. So as soon as you're in the building, you should manage to find the conference location rooms. The other important locations on campus are the Mensa for lunch, but there's also a small Mensa in this building. And this is where we will have dinner tomorrow night on the Q West, where you have to pay on your own. Tonight we will have a reception upstairs for everyone. And it would be really nice because we have a lot of students volunteering to make this happening, and they will be there today, tomorrow, and on Friday, assisting you with everything. And I put up a donation box so that we can invite them for dinner tomorrow night and drinks. So if you could be so kind, or some of you, to put some money in so that we can make a nice evening for them as well. Great, that it is from me so far, and now I hand over to you, Sabrina.
Hello, and very warm welcome also on behalf of the ITB. The three letters that you could see on the program, and nobody knows what it actually means. It's a shortcut for Institut für Protest- und Bewegungsforschung in German, which translates to Institute for the Study of Protest and Social Movements, or Protest and Social Movement Studies. My name is Teune, and I will use the time that I have here now to tell you a little bit about the IPB, the Protest Institute, the Institut für Protest- und Bewegungsforschung. And I think it's important to tell you about it because it's an innovation in the field of social movement studies, in the organization of social movement studies. We are not a university institute, but we are something that we call a network institute. So the objective of this institute is to, one, connect social movement scholars across Germany or German-speaking countries, two, to initiate research projects in the field, and three, to connect academia and other fields of expertise, journalism, politics, activism, in the spirit of public sociology. So the network part of it is that we are a membership-based organization. All of our activities go back to the initiative of our members. So among others, this very conference is part of that initiative. At the moment we have, I think, 95 members, and they are all from German-speaking countries. There are a few exceptions, like Donatella, but she speaks German at least. But most of them, I think there's also another colleague from Italy, but most of the people are from Germany, Switzerland and Austria. So the idea is that part of the concept of the networking aspect is that we try to connect people also along issues. So we have thematic working groups. At the moment it's 11 or 12 working groups in which people organize to network, to exchange information, to discuss the latest research. And actually 8 out of the 19 panels that we will see starting tomorrow have been organized by these research groups. Coming to the research aspect, most of our members are affiliated with the university, like most scholars. So they do most of their research connected to this university context. But the idea of the Institute is also to initiate research. So we consider the IPB also as an environment to develop new projects. So what we did is, for example, we have surveyed several demonstrations in Germany as a group that comes from this, originating from the IPB. We have written research papers for NGOs, and currently we are also conducting our first full-fledged research project on media coverage of large-scale demonstrations. And finally, the public sociology aspect. We aim at discussing our research results with different stakeholders, as I said, activists, journalists, and also policymakers, when we consider this as part and parcel of the IPB. So we think that science or social science doesn't make much sense if it is disconnected from the problems and the people who are actually dealing with the problems. So what we did so far is we organized press briefings about protests, we did public discussions, and we also seek to reshape our research projects, our research agenda in discussions with civil society. So if you are interested to learn more about the IPB, you are welcome to approach us at any time. Sabrina, me, Dieter, Priska, we are everywhere. And there's also a designated time slot on Friday afternoon, 4 to 4:30 p.m. in room 06610, where you can come and talk to us about the IPB. And you are, of course, always welcome to join the association and become a member and be part of the network. And of course, you can find more information on our website, protestinstitut.eu. And this is also our social media handle on Twitter and Facebook, Protest Institute. So please follow us also on Facebook and Twitter. And that's all I wanted to say. Geoffrey, it's your turn.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. It's my turn to congratulate really Sabrina and the IPB and the Institute for Social Development for this really important conference. And it's actually a cross-movement mobilization conference, but actually also a double challenge for us as a research committee on social movement from the International Social Association. It's a double challenge because on one side, and as Sabrina explained very well, it's about fostering alliances across progressive movements. But on the other side, it's also, so that's more for the actor's perspective, it's also a real challenge in the academia. In academia, where we have very separated fields, and we have often gone in social movement studies, something like a hyper specialization, where we have always more reduced objects, and which is partly good because social movement studies has become quite a good field with many students, many researchers. But at the same time, we lost connection with other fields and with more general sociology. So it's precisely the aim of the Research Committee 47 of the ISA to try to connect social movement studies with more general sociology. And so I believe that aside of this very important challenge for the actors to go beyond divisions, it's also maybe as important to see how we can go beyond the borders that have risen in the academia. And of course, if you are here, that for most of you it's so obvious that we should not split unions on one side and social movements on the others. But in the outside world, in ISA, for example, we have a separate committee on union and another one, and two other ones actually, on social movements. So here really I think that we need some more active, proactive initiative collaborations to foster collaborations between people who work on unions and social movements. So obvious for us here, but not so obvious in the outside world. And also, very often I found it so easy to say. Of course, there's not something like an old movement and new movements. We see that there are many things that it's clearly a clear blurred border, for sure. But then, as soon as we go back to our work, we see that there are specific journals, that we have different literatures, that there are actually not so many collaborations between the people who work on unions and people who work on social movements. Too often in social movement studies, unions may be reduced to actors who just focus on raising salaries and small things, while the good social movements should be about transforming society. Well, we have seen in all the movement recently, unions have played a big role, even in the so-called super new social movements like the World Social Forum would not have existed without unions. And Occupy Wall Street, without the unions it would just last a few days and that's it. The same for Nuit debout, more recently in France, that also was so much connected with trade union struggles. And you can think about, of course, the Arab Spring and many other cases. And here, I wanted to make a plea for a more global perspective, but Sabrina already did it in such a good way. But definitely, as soon as you go and look at the global south, then all this border between social movements and union are really even more blurred. And we see how we have to take, for us, from a social movements perspective, so many insight from the people who focus on unions, but also from people in the global south, which is for them this separation just doesn't make sense. We see how, for example, environmental justice movements came from this bridges between social movement and unions. At the same time, and even more, that's like the bright side, the environmental justice movements. But also we see now that that for scholars and for actors, the dialogue between social movements and unions is so important, but it's also it's always more abstract. And today you see how many scholars, but mostly activists, working in unions are just killed every year. We saw the very frightening case of Colombia these days, but also, of course, in Egypt, in China, in many different countries. And precisely here I would like to just have some moment to remember one of our members from the Research Committee 47, who is Giulio Regini. He worked on autonomous unions in Egypt, and that's the reason why he was taken by the police at a social movements demonstration, so it's mixed between social movements and unions. He was taken, tortured, and murdered because he was conducting research on autonomous unions in Egypt. So every quite a while I guess I'm not the only one, but I wonder why. I wonder if research on social movements or research on unions, if it is really important to keep doing this research, if they have an impact. Well, in this perspective, at least for the authoritarian regime in Egypt, it was very clear that this kind of research are important, that autonomous unions are a real threat, and the research on and supporting these unions are really serious threats for the regime. So we may have sometimes some doubts about the usefulness of our research that they don't have, which is actually a clear way to say that we have to commit more research on that, and it is really important. So really the challenge, theoretically we all agree that we have to go beyond all the new social movement divide, empirically and in a concrete way, complete work at university, it's far more difficult. I really hope to learn a lot from people who focus more on union care, because we too often have different literature, too often perspective, and even sometimes different methodologies. So here I would like to thank once again Sabrina, not only for this conference, but also for her fantastic work to bring together two research committees from the ISA on unions and on movements. This is one very important step here, but we had also one important sessions, the last session of those research committees that she organized with Daniele Di Nunzo, who also did some fantastic work on bridging the gap. And it was first an initiative by Peter Evans. So I'm so glad that the three persons who did most to bridge the gaps here are here in the room today for the ISA. And this is just going on because at the next World Congress of Sociology, you will find two, not only one, but two sessions on two joint sessions organized by Sabrina and Daniele Di Nunzo on unions and social movements. The call will be out on next Tuesday, so get ready. Send you proposals. And that's in Toronto in July 2018, but the call is almost out and you will have to send us some very good things on this topic before September. And this week, I'm also very glad that our series called Open Movements, website run by ISA 47 and Open Democracy website initiative. We also published a second series on social movements and unions, and this one is also coordinated by Sabrina. It's about fostering alliances across progressive movements. We'll publish one article. One article is already online today, and we publish one article a week in the next at least 4 or 5 weeks. So if you want to contribute, please send to Sabrina and to me your proposal for these articles, and we'll be very glad to publish online. That's all for me. Thank you very much for receiving this conference here, and thank you, Sabrina, for your work to join the two committees.
Thank you, Geoffrey. Just a second so that you know what's happening here, because Peter Evans won't be coming here by plane, but we will have him here via Skype, so you will see his presentation and his face and his voice, and we just accessed him so I can see him. You can't see him yet, you will see him, he's waving his hands, and thank you, Sabrina, for managing it. Yes.
Oh, he's a little bit short, you might want to switch chairs.
Okay, thank you, Sabrina, for speaking some words at this nice conference. My name is Jens Becker. I'm a member of the Hans-Böckler Foundation. I'm responsible for the PhD scholarships in the Hans-Böckler Foundation, and I'm glad that the Foundation is supporting this nice conference. Let me say some words about the Hans-Böckler Foundation. As you surely or maybe know, the Hans-Böckler Foundation is a trade union-related foundation. The name of the foundation is based on Hans Böckler, the first head of the German trade unions after 1945, who died at the beginning of the 50s, very early. And to take him in honor, if you want, this kind of a history remark also, the foundation was named. We had two several parts, the so-called determination Foundation and the Hans Böckler Foundation, and there was a fusion in the 70s. So only some words to the history. The focus of the Hans Böckler Foundation is, as a trade union-related foundation, of course, co-determination. So this is the key business, if you want. But the second, also important factor, which is concerning to the keyword co-determination, is researching about that, and also research about welfare state, social economy, and so on. And the third line, if you want, is this what I do, so-called scholarships or grants, or however you want to call it in Deutsch, Stipendien. Yes, and as a co-denominated foundation, we support also PhDs, but also bachelor and master studies. In the past it was diploma and magister. Some of them still exist in law and in psychology. In Germany we have, but the most is indeed the bachelor or master. And so we have round about 2,600 students and round about 330 students which get a scholar PhD. And 50% of them have a single research project for their own, and the other 50% are members also of their own PhD project, but they are part of a so-called Nachwuchsforschungsgruppe, of colleague if you want. And we have two lines. The big one is called Promotionskolleg, and the other one, which we have three of them here, is the smaller one, is the so-called Nachwuchsforschungsgruppe. And so it is, if you want, an art of collective learning and discussing, but fighting for their own to get a PhD, of course. And so you have theory and practice also on this conference, and you can evaluate it after that. But I think it is very good prepared. So after that, let me say some other words. Of course, our research and the focus of the foundation is are the trade union rights and the rights of the employees, wages, social security, etc., etc., etc. Also, of course, welfare state, social policy, social market, the system of the social market economy, and one small part, especially in the research, in the part of grants, are also scholarships in researching the history of the labor, history of trade unions, and actual political or sociological researches, which we have here also in this very nice project of Sabrina, actual transnational or national social movements. Okay, this is one point. Another point is, if you look in the history of the trade unions, especially in Germany, I'm a little specialist in it, maybe a big specialist, I don't know. There are some links between social movements and trade unions, of course. One prominent and very actual link is, especially if you take part in the next year, if you are looking forward to the next year, not only to the conference, in the year 2018, 50 years after 1968, after 1968. In Germany we had big protests against the so-called Notstandsgesetze.
Emergency laws.
Pardon?
Emergency laws.
Yes, emergency laws. And we had a very famous coalition between the IG Metall and other trade unions, but especially between the IG Metall and Otto Brenner, the head of the IG Metall, and the students' protests to prevent the so-called emergency law, or to relative that. Maybe this we have to be honest and modest, but so we can also learn from the past. And if you go back in the 19th century, and according also to the conference motto, International Conference of Cross-Movement Mobilization, if you are looking back to the history of the International Working Association, das also Internationale Arbeiterassoziation, the first international, where you have anarchistic and socialist and Marxist and Boudon and other activists. If you go in the 19th century, in 1917, 100 years ago, the first Russian Revolution, you had a very big coalition between different groups of the labor movement, and also of anarchistic and nationalistic and liberal movements, not all, to fight against the Tsarism, and in Germany to fight against the Wilhelminism. But one point is maybe for your discussions tomorrow in the future, the unification of such different ideologies, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit nervous, ideologies, and also organizations, very different and heterogeneous organizations, they are against somewhat. You understand? They are against Tsarism, they are against the emergency state, against fascism. But fascism it was a little bit difficult because it was a grand disaster and there was not a big fight in Germany, unfortunately. But it is very difficult for them to make a common project clear and to convince masses of people, also of working class people, to fight against capitalism or whatever you want. And so it is very simple to be against something, but to make a big project for majorities, it is, I think this is one of the key questions of the history of social movements, and it is the key question also to survive in the future. And with these words I want to end, and I'm looking forward to hear the discussions. Thank you very much.
Great, so we will start now with our main presentation of today, and we will rearrange it a little bit. Dieter Rucht, if you could come in front, please, because you will be the first person. And we will start the debate on cross-movement mobilization as a conceptual and practical challenge. And let me say just very brief, a few words. I guess I don't need to introduce neither Dieter Rucht nor Peter Evans to you, but just to mention when we started planning this conference, and we had different conferences with the Institute of Protest and Social Movement Studies in Berlin, where there were over 100 people and the German social movement community gathered, and so one time there was this plan, okay, let's do an international conference, and it was actually Dieter who said, cross-movement mobilization would be a good topic, so we decided to go forward with this topic, and I think this is why it's also very good to that he will be the first presenter and discuss some of the issues of this topic in general and introduce it a little bit to us. And I think I don't need to tell you that Dieter has worked on all sorts of issues on topics of social movement research and social movements in globalization, and contributed to many books and written different books, and the very important handbook on social movement studies in German. And I think it's really nice for us to have Dieter here as a very important social movement scholar, and afterwards Peter, coming from the labor studies, having contributed a lot on how labor is dealing with globalization, and thought a lot about how labor can form alliances with social movements to form a global counter-movement. So I think it fits very well, and I hand over to you now, Dieter. Thanks.
Good afternoon to everybody. It's good to see so many people interested in social movements. Just when I was sitting here, I was thinking also about the past and how this began in Germany. I was studying social movements in the late 70s, and there was probably just a handful of people who were really working on social movements in that period. And there was almost no literature, and there was just one book, unfortunately a book which has been largely neglected or has been never translated into English, which was a book by Otheimer Randstedt, called Social Movements. I still think it's worthwhile to consider this book. But now, coming to my topic. Cross-movement mobilization as a conceptual challenge, and in the conference title there is also the addition as a practical challenge. So my focus will be not so much on the practical challenge, the political challenge, how to organize cross-movement mobilization, but rather I will comment, and these are just a few remarks, some loose ideas, I would call this, not an elaborated presentation on the ways how to conceptualize cross-movement cooperation or collaboration or mobilization. I was also thinking about which picture to put on the front page, and there was quite a number of choices I had, but I decided to show this picture of Greenham Common. The older generation among you will probably remember. This was the kind of, it was a feminist movement, one could say, in Great Britain, but the issue was not specifically women's issues, but it was on peace. And so basically women organized in front of that military camp where nuclear weapons were stored. So this was a nice blend of two issues, namely women's issues and peace issues. Well, let's start with very basic and elementary ideas. We have this simplistic idea that somewhere there is a social movement, and of course the social movement is not just a passive entity, but it becomes active, and what does it actually do? It organizes some kind of protests, of campaigns. Of course, this is not only the only activity, but it's a key activity of every social movement, at least in the long run, to express their views, to publicize their demands in public and collectively. And so this is where we find it in the end. These are publicly staged protests or protest campaigns, defined as a series of specific protest events. So that's the basic idea. Somehow social movements organize protest events. When we talk about cross-movement or cross-mobilization of protest, then we have, in the beginning, a simplistic concept. Well, there is one movement, movement A. They somehow connect or overlap with another movement, movement B, and then jointly they organize a protest event. Of course, the organization or the mobilization is not necessarily limited to this overlapping part, but as the other arrows on the top and the down indicate, it could be also undertaken by groups which exclusively belong either to movement A or to movement B, who are not in this overlapping zone. Well, at a closer look at the story of the things become more and more complicated. I was thinking, well, if you are going to historians, if you go to Bochum, you should talk about protest events taking place in Bochum. And actually, there was a long history of protest here in the city, and among this history, there were also annual First May protests. And in this period, in the early 30s, it started already earlier, we have the idea that in almost each large German city, the labor movement, that would be one of the potential labels, organized an event which is associated with this idea of the 1st of May. At a closer look, there was not a labor movement, but there were particular factions or tendencies within this so-called entity labor movement which organized the local protest here in Bochum. And a very simplistic picture would identify at least two components of this first May Day protest. Namely, there was, largely speaking, a social democratic camp, and there was a communist camp. And there was a big tension between these two tendencies. So although they showed up and took it to the streets for the same reason, to express their critique of capitalism, or to express also, to symbolize the conflict between labor and capital, in fact, they organized different events on the same day, starting on the same place, Moltke Place, here in Bochum. I assume it has now a different name, does it? Because Moltke is a military person from the emperor, so I don't know, I haven't been there. Anyway, the Social Democrats organized their own march starting at 10 o'clock, and the Communists organized a separate march starting 1 hour later from the same spot. And now the question arises, is this already cross-movement mobilization, or is it just mobilization within the labor movement and with the specificity that there were two protests? If I would tell you about the Berlin situation, at least in the early years of 2000, it's still much more complicated. You had at one point of time a movement, a march organized by trade unions. Then you had a separate march or a rally organized by Die Linke, the left party. Then you had, in the afternoon, 3 so-called revolutionary demonstrations starting at 2 o'clock, at 3 o'clock, and then they combined somehow at 6 o'clock. And in the evening there was another event from the radical left where they ridiculized about these number of demonstrations, of revolutionary demonstrations, and they claimed to organize the only true left-wing revolutionary demonstration. This was a kind of ridiculizing this competition among left-wingers. Now, if you take still a closer look at what happened here in Bochum in '32, then you will find a more complicated picture, more differentiated pictures. So there was, there was this communist event which I mentioned before, and then there was a larger camp organizing the earlier march. But if you look into this camp, there were different groups or networks who were actually marching and present and physically visible also. So one big group were the Social Democrats, another big groups, and of course there was also an overlap were the trade unions, there were the Rote Falken, German term Red Falcons, Friends of Nature, which was a kind of forerunner of environmental groups, embedded into the labor movement, workers' youth, and so on, and quite a number of cultural groups, doing sports, doing singing, and so on and so on. Theater groups. And this was just a question mark. I didn't study this case in much detail. I assume that there were anarchists as well, and probably they have joined the March of Communists, probably they were separated, probably they also gathered or joined those social events which usually were implemented or took place in the afternoon or in the evening. And I'm not sure whether the Social Democratic camp organized its own social event in the afternoon. At the evening they were dancing and singing and eating, picnicking, and so on. I assume that they were separate, so I haven't studied this in detail, I said before, but I assume that the social events were not combined, but that each camp organized its own social activities in the evening and afternoon. This was just one city, one event on the same day. But if you look at what happens in our periods, the stories will become still much more complicated. Here I was basically referring to transnational campaigns, but even if we would look at some national campaigns, the story is quite complicated and differentiated. So this is just a reminder to a few of the more recent campaigns, well, more recent, 87. For you, it's not really very recent, I guess. That's also a matter of age, I guess. Well, we had in Berlin a large protest campaign against the meeting of the IMF and the World Bank in '87. There were probably 70 to 80,000 people in the streets without mobilization by the internet. Indeed, it was possible. And there was not just one single event, but this was a series of events lasting for 1 week. And actually there were groups preparing for that action week for at least 1 year and a half. So at the end they formed a committee to coordinate the protest, and there were literally hundreds of groups, and I don't know how many, but probably 1,000 events that took place in preparation of this week of action. So there was, for instance, one central flyer which was distributed. And on the one hand, you had a text which was accepted by all the groups who participated in the event. These were more than 150 groups. And on the back of that flyer, there was a list of these 150 or 152 groups. And so you could see there was a common platform or a way of agreement signed by all the groups, although they had very specific issues at a closer look. So there were third world groups involved, there were feminist groups involved, there were groups working on political economic issues, there were groups working on poverty, there were groups working on hunger and poverty in third world countries, and so on. So there was one single campaign, but at least 150 groups, and a lot of issues. And if you look at that common ground, which is indicated by that flyer, I think that there was a kind of master frame involved, more or less shared by all the groups, which when we identified or when we analyzed that text on the front page, we thought that there is a common denominator or a common master frame, which we called a critique of imperialism. The word wasn't there, but the meaning was there. So this is, imperial master frame was our labeling, but there was at least a common ground accepted by 150 groups. And this was a very clear case of cross-movement mobilization. I won't tell you now hundreds of these stories. This was just one example which I elaborated a bit, but you can see very similar patterns when you look at the Battle of Seattle, as it was called afterwards. This was the protest against the WTO meeting in '99, or there was a ban of landmines campaign, which resulted in an international treaty signed by 150 countries or so in '97. There was a campaign which lasted years and years to finally get this treaty. Not everybody signed it, by the way. During 2000 campaigns against the G7 or G8 meetings in different countries in different periods, and the forthcoming campaign, which which we intend to study, by the way, in some detail, which will take place in Hamburg in July of this year. And what we can see already is a number of groups who are engaged in the preparatory process, and we also see basically a split between two camps which organize their separate events. So in the week before the real meeting, there is the more moderate camp, basically organizing teachings and so on, but also organizing protest events in the streets. And a week later, there's another network organizing during the official meeting, and this will be another big protest, and I assume that they will not be these completely separated networks, but also those who participate in the first week, at least a part of them, will also join the protests in the following week. So the common features here are a long preparation period, sometimes in some cases lasting for, as I said, one and a half year, even 2 years before. Several movements, however defined, are involved. Many social movement organizations and more specific networks are involved. And they also develop, at least in some cases, an overarching infrastructure for coordination, preparation, financing, media work, and so on and so on. Well, so far I used the term social movement in a very loose sense. I didn't define it, and we were simply assuming movements somehow collaborate. But again, this is not obvious. So the question, first of all, is when we talk about cross-movement mobilization, what is our unit of analysis? And here is a choice of potential units. I don't think that the social movement sector, defined as the ensemble of all movements in a certain area and a different period, is a unit of analysis with regard to cross-movement mobilization. Because we have oppositional or antagonistic movements in that sector. And these almost by definition will not cooperate for joint activities. But at a lower level, the next level, when you move to the level of movement families, this was, by the way, a concept Donatella and I were proposing in the literature many years ago. This is borrowed from this idea of party families, this idea. These are movements which are akin to each other, which share a kind of broad common ideology. And of course, there is also a lot of cross-movement, coordination, cooperation, and overlap in such a movement family. So these are not distinct and completely separated individual movements. Then, of course, you can move to the more specific level of social movements. Just as a footnote, I define it by 4 elements. It is a network of individuals, groups, and organizations. It's based on a collective identity. I don't try to define it here. Secondly, it aims for a substantial or fundamental change of society, or it wants to resist attempts for such a change. And thirdly, it relies heavily on the tactics of public collective protest. So this would be my definition of a social movement, which, by the way, is not original. It's shared also by Mario Viani by and large, by Donatella, and by a few others. So based on that definition of social movements, we have to take a closer look at the internal components of a social movement, which are individuals, which are groups, organizations, networks, social movement parties, and so on. And I think this is the real hard stuff. Here, the action takes place. It doesn't take place at the level of movement. But this brings me to a more fundamental aspect. Can a social movement act at all? Can you attribute the terms or the concepts of means and ends to a social movement? And my answer would be, which may be surprising, no. Usually you can't. We are used to talk about the social movement which is engaging in some kind of action, and this refers to the idea of a unity which takes a decision and then implements this decision. And my point is, this is a borderline case. I wouldn't rule out that a social movement, as a social movement, can act in very extraordinary moments. But I would argue, as a rule, a social movement is not an actor, but it's an action system. And this is not just a new label on the same thing. This is something fundamentally different. You can, if you take let's take another example. The marketplace or the capitalist market worldwide. Can you attribute the idea of means and ends to the market? I would say no, you can't. The market is a system. Within the system, you find specific actors, more or less organized, who have intentions, who deliberately use certain means to realize certain ends. But the market as such is beyond these categories of means and ends, intentions, and so on. It can be understood in functional terms, but it can not be understood in terms of a means-end rationality. So, for you, this may be trivial. I think it has severe theoretical consequences, how to conceive a social movement. In my argument, I cannot elaborate on this, is a social movement, as a rule, does not act. If we would decompose this unity of a social movement, I think it makes sense to think of social movements in terms of concentric circles. So you have a core, you have, broadly speaking, a semi-periphery, and you have a periphery, and then of course you have a world outside of a social movement. And of course, there are no clear boundaries. So this is not a political party, but you can say if you have a membership card and if you're paying your dues, you're part of it. If you don't have the card, you are not part of it. So that doesn't apply for social movement, but of course it may apply for certain movement organizations, including parties, including foundations, including formal organizations. So within the movement, we have different elements. We tend to call them social movement organizations, SMOs, but this is just one form of it. There may be also specific networks with no formal shape or so. There may be a movement party, and so on. And we can conceive of a social movement in that way. And of course, the interesting part of it is the relation between these elements. So we have different kinds of nodes, but what really matters, and I think Mario Vianney will not at this point, what really matters are the relations between these different points. And the relations actually create the action, not the structure as such. In a similar way, of course, we can also locate individuals. So you have, for instance, in the core, this core activists or permanent activists or strategists that have different functions within the core. Then issues by donating money or participating in a rally and so on. And then you have people who maybe just be there once or twice in a year, or donating some money, or defending the issue in a bar where a heated debate starts about whether this is meaningful, what these people are doing or not. So there are sympathizers or adherents which are more or less at the periphery of the social movements. Well, if we move from the movement to the broader picture again, then we see a constellation of various kinds of actors. Within the movement family, so this symbolizes the movement family, but again, the borderlines are not strict. These are diffuse borders, by definition of the borders. There may be different kinds of movements, more or less closer to the center of the movement family. There may be an external ally who collaborates on the specific issue with one of the movements. There may be other movements completely unrelated to the movement family. There may be counter-movements which engage in direct struggles against one of the movements or the movement family as a whole. There may be different components of the counter-movement. There are also institutional opponents, such as the state or big corporations, whatever, or control agencies and so on. And then there are third parties who are observing, who are applauding, who are sometimes rhetorically promoting or accepting movement issues or not accepting them, and so on. So we enter a complex field, and when we talk about cross-movement mobilization, we are usually either talking about cross-movement mobilization between two movements or between various components in the larger social movement family. Well, whenever I see a weather forecast map, I see this, I think you call it new cyclones and anti-cyclones, right? Germany's Hoch and Tief, the lower pressure areas and the higher pressure areas, and these are opposed to each other. But if you look at the dynamics, I was checking yesterday several or 20 of these maps, what's going on there. You feel, I see the parallel to social movement activity. So you have those who have similar, the same ideas, or the same pressure or values, I don't know how to call it, and you have oppositional movements which are by their nature oppositional to the other ones, but they're moving around, and sometimes they are linked, or they're not completely separated. If you look from this low pressure to this low pressure, they have cores which are separated, but there is nothing in between which really separates them. And then they can fuse or collapse, forming just one low pressure, bigger low pressure area, but they also can move apart from each other. So in the end you have two rather distinct cores and movements. And all this is very dynamic. It changes from hour to hour, it changes from day to day. Of course, the dynamics of movements is slower. But if you would look at social movements over decades or even centuries, it reminds me very much, at least at a symbolic level, to this weather constellations. There's constantly something going on. Yeah? Moving closer to each other, separating, and so on, and having also sharp dividing lines where there is really a weather front, as it is called. Well, collaboration usually works on the basis of friendly relations. And we have different kinds of these relations. I don't go into detail. I think I might otherwise take too long. So we have movement who are based on their ideology or based on other reasons, very close to each other. And this could be a situation of standby. They are ready to act together, but they are not yet actually collaborating. But it's easy then to establish collaboration if you have already that proximity of different movements. Secondly, there are strategic alliances, formal or informal ones, where movement components, SMOs, agree to do something on a limited issue and for a limited time period. And then there is tactical cooperation, which is still more narrowly defined, where they just agree to do this action jointly, but otherwise they stay completely separate. And sometimes this also occurs in the form of an explicit or implicit division of labor. I don't know if you know from the literature this thing called radical flank effect. This would be a nice example of implicit division of labor. You have the radical groups who are putting pressure in street action and attacking police and so on. And then you have those sitting at the negotiation table dealing with the power holders. And of course these roles seem to be separate, but there was also this observation made in the United States that sometimes those sitting on the negotiation table profit a lot from the radical action in the street because it strengthens their negotiation power. But it may also work in the other way around, that you really divide a movement and then you can really rule. So it's a very tricky game, this radical flank effect. The basis for collaboration, I think this is quite trivial, can be mainly personal, people knowing each other, being even friends, having a common past, having been together in their study times and so on. They may have shared experiences from previous activities, joint activities, so it's easy then to communicate and to ally and to do something new on that basis. But the basis can be also more organizational. You provide mutual support, you exchange information, you leave space, office space, or you help with facilities and so on and so on. And of course it can be also ideological. I didn't discuss so far what really means mobilization. What is it actually? And I don't want to go into detail here, but at least I should mention this distinction made by Bert Klandermans, a psychologist, a social psychologist from Amsterdam, who is quite important, by the way. And he made this basic distinction. I think it's not very original, but it's important to keep it as an analytical distinction between what he called consensus mobilization and action mobilization. Consensus mobilization means that you influence the minds of people, the way of thinking of people, which does not necessarily imply action. But it's an important step to prepare the ground in order to be ready to motivate people to participate in action. And in order to achieve this participation, people also not only have to be convinced that it's meaningful to pursue these goals or to take part in that action, but you also have to remove barriers for participation, which may be laziness, 5 minutes, which may be the weather, bad weather, should we go, it's raining, no, stay at home, there's an interesting movie this afternoon, no, I don't go to the demonstration, I rather watch the movies, and so on. So these are practical obstacles which have to be taken away in order to transform the potential into the action. Well, again, I won't go into any detail, but this is a provisional list of factors that I would argue facilitate cross-movement or cross-group mobilization. Of course, ideological proximity helps a lot, and sometimes it's the only basis or the main basis, but sometimes it's also dependent on other features, to which extent and how easy you can collaborate across movements or across components of movements. There's also this element which probably is less discussed or less known, which is called brokers. Sometimes you need people or groups placed between the movements who know the way of thinking, the language, the background of two components, and they work as a kind of translator or mediator, and they bring together these elements which, without the presence of the brokers, would never collaborate. Well, I'll just read here. This was just a kind of footnote. Charles Tilly has argued with this, in presenting this category of the CATNet, which is a combination of category and network, that social movement activity is most likely when these two components belonging to the same category as farmers, students, workers, and so on, and being networked in terms of communication come together. And of course there are special areas where this communication can take place. Hi Peter, how are you? I still have 3 minutes and I won't explain.
Okay, let's wait a minute, just disconnect. I'm sorry?
No problem.
We had trouble with the internet.
Hello, Peter. I'm coming towards the end of my presentation, but you are still obliged to wait for, let's say, 2 or 3 minutes, and then I will finish, and then it's your turn. But now, somehow he has influenced my system here, and he doesn't allow me to go on. Okay, I hope so. Well, I will take it very briefly now. There are different obstacles, hurdles that make it very difficult for cross-movement mobilization. You just read these keywords, I don't explain it, and I move towards the final part of my presentation, at least very briefly. There are several grounds or several types of aspects that facilitate cross-movement mobilization. One, of course, is, I mentioned that already before, having a similar credo ideology. And this is just a nice case. For instance, during World War I, there was a conference in Switzerland organized by Clara Zetkin, and she nicely promoted 3 issues at the same time. One, of course, were workers' issues, the socialist cause as a general cause. The second one were women's issues, and the third one were peace issues. And this happened during war, when people were already shooting at each other, so they were sitting in Switzerland and promoting these 3 issues in one conference. That's a nice case of an early cross-movement collaboration. I could tell you for hours about the other examples, but I'll stop here. The second combining or facilitating element is having the same opponent. Donald Trump is ideal, by the way, to bring to movements together across various fields and domains and so on. So I really like him in this regard. We also have this phenomenon of strange bedfellows. Some people from ideologically different camps come together for a limited action or limited period to fight the common enemy. But once he is down or she is down, the enemy, then of course the splits restore. The third element belonging to the same category or being in similar conditions, I mentioned that earlier. The fourth element I listed here is inherent issue links. For instance, if I give you this phrase here, you can move at the production of something, let's say gold or whatever, you can, or corn, and then you can look at the aspect of consumption, you can look at the aspect of waste, the energy which is wasted or which is mobilized for this chain of production, the pollution aspect, the health aspects. So these aspects are inherently bound together, and they facilitate the collaboration of different movements or different more focused groups in this chain of issues. I would have nice examples, but I cannot recommend this right now. The fifth, I call it issue affinity. That's simply the proximity because they are all, by and large, located in the same domain. So nuclear power, for instance, environmental issues, and animal rights issues are closely together somehow. These are also facilities, okay? The last one is issue amplification, as I would call it. You start with a very limited definition of the problem. For instance, in a NIMBY constellation, you say, we don't want to have this plant here. You can put it somewhere else, we don't mind, but not here. But then you notice that it's not possible. And then you say, we don't want this plant at all, in no place. Nuclear power plant, for instance. But then you move from nuclear power to alternative technology, or you move to the collaboration between industry and the state and so on. And this becomes broader and broader. You start with a limited problem, and after a while, this becomes broader and more deeper, the critique. And now the last slide. Well, looking back, and I'm really glad that this conference now takes place, I think there is a strange neglect of these collaborative aspects in social movement studies. We all know that this happens, but we hardly were focused on these aspects, we hardly theorized it and conceptualized it, and I think this is a good start of this conference, at least I hope so. But still we lack adequate theories and concepts, and also my presentation was just some sort of loose ideas in that direction. But I also think we have to study this aspect, this phenomenon of cross-movement mobilization from both sides, coming from thick description on the one hand, but also coming from theory of concepts on the other hand. And here is my final citation from C.Y. Joyce, which nicely expresses this need for coming from both sides. So it's about the blindness of empirical data and the emptiness of theory without empirical research. Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dieter. And I think you gave us a lot of food for thought for the next couple of days, showing us the complexity of this issue and giving us different directions where we can think about and theorize about and look into empirically. And we now put Peter here, and here a little different perspective on cooperation from the labor side, which actually did explore and ask similar questions that you brought up now. And Peter will bring some of his perspective on this use up in a second. We practiced it yesterday a couple of times so that it works smoothly, and we will make the rounds of questions afterwards together, so Dieter can come in front. And please speak up loudly, and I might repeat, if you have questions for Peter, I might repeat them, then put them this mic so that you can directly hear it, and then it should be very loudly, so you can hear this response to the big microphones loudly. So just a second, it will be there soon. No pressure, Sabrina. Okay, great.
Very good. I can't see anything except for my presentation, but that's fine.
Great. No, we also see your face and we can hear you perfectly.
Excellent. Excellent. So let me start, and let me say, first of all, I would like to congratulate the organizers of this fantastic conference. I am looking over the program, very sad that I can't participate in person, but I'm very happy that to be able to participate at least a distance, and I've already learned a great deal from being able to be part of the audience for Dieter's very fascinating talk. So congratulations to the organizers. I'd also like to especially thank Sabrina for making this, my participation here possible. So in contrast to the vast array of sophisticated perspectives that will be offered over the course of the next 3 days, I am going to offer a couple of quite simple propositions. But hopefully it's good to have a few simple propositions at the beginning before building a more sophisticated analytical edifice. And I think that my propositions may be useful in terms of providing a complement to the very interesting analytical perspective that Dieter just offered. So I'm going to focus on two movements, the transnational human rights movement and the global labor movement. I'm focusing primarily on transnational movement, and I'm going to start with the simple proposition that the perceptions of transnational movements within the field have shifted quite substantially over the course of the last 2 decades. That 20 years ago we lived in an era of millennial euphoria with regard to the efficacy of transnational movements. Cross-movement synergies were seen as natural. Transnational social action was seen as an irresistible progressive sea change. And here we see, I think, the Battle of Seattle. I would argue that now, 2 decades in, almost 2 decades into the 21st century, we are living in an era of skepticism in which cross-movement connections are often viewed as chimera, and in which transnational movements are viewed as incapable of affecting structural change. So, my proposition here is that it is possible to at least partially rescue that earlier euphoric moment, and that this rescue depends upon seeing transnational social movements not just as having cross-movement synergies, but as being an ecology of movements. That is to say, as being a set of movements that are differentiated, but synergistically interconnected. There we go. So the source of my vision of transnational movements as an ecology of movements is Cesar Rodriguez Garavito, with whom I've been working. And Cesar used this vision primarily in relation to the transnational human rights movement, arguing that we are headed toward an ecosystem of human rights, a field with active strategies and frameworks that are much more varied and perhaps much more efficacious and egalitarian than those that have characterized the theory and practice of human rights until now. So in short, Cesar uses this vision of ecology of movements to rescue a more euphoric vision of future possibility. Now, going back to our euphoric millennial start, I think that Hart and Negri's multitude is perhaps the archetype of the euphoric vision of social movement. They, of course, in 2000 saw the multitude as a, quote, uncontainable force sustained by subterranean and uncontainable rhizomes, capable of transforming all fixed and centralized elements into so many more nodes in its indefinitely expansive network. Now, this is, of course, a very attractive and powerful vision of the possibilities, I think a vision that proved to be fundamentally unsustainable. Another variation on the millennial euphoria was Stephen Gill's postmodern prints, and I won't expand on postmodern prints. So let me move to the transnational human rights movement as an example of the euphoria, skepticism, perception shift in visions of transnational social movement. If we look back to the late 20th century, the human rights movement really took off as a global phenomenon. It developed very powerful organizations like Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, and from the 70s to the 90s, it became, in the eyes of many, a very powerful force in the world. This is a little quote from Stephen Hopgood. Now, by the second decade of the 20th century, this euphoric vision of the transnational human rights movement had been challenged by a variety of critical perspectives on that same movement and those same organizations. The critics argued changes in global norms and rhetoric, treaties, conventions, and legal institutions do not end up having measurable positive consequences for human security outcomes on the ground. Okay? In other words, the critique was the movement, while it still looked the same in terms of organizational size and scope, had not, in fact, succeeded in changing things in the world. Likewise, it argued that even though qualitative cases might look good, the quantitative statistical analysis validated this absence of outcome. Okay? Now, if we take that critique seriously, we also have to consider that, in fact, the critics are faced with some serious counterpoints in terms of empirical research. One of the best pieces of quantitative analysis, which uses a lot of large longitudinal data sets, etc., does indeed find that quantitative analysis validates positive effects for the transnational human rights movement. And Amanda Purdy's book, 14th book, Help or Harm, is, I think, one of the best examples of this. We could go into bunches of other data. Likewise, compelling qualitative case studies continue to emerge. My favorite case is Catherine Sicknick's Justice Cascade, which demonstrates the way in which innovative mobilization, starting in the Global South, reverberates to create a global fight against the impunity of officials who are perpetuating terror, and ends up being central to global human rights networks. Okay, so what I would argue is that the skeptics, those who fail to see the strength of contemporary transnational human rights movement, the skeptics are missing the morphing of the movement. That is to say that it has morphed into a more differentiated movement with more cross-movement ties. And I'll get back to this in a bit. Okay, let me move on here quickly to the global labor movement as another example. Like the transnational human rights movement, the global labor movement has been characterized by a shift from relative euphoria at the end of the 20th century to skepticism in the second decade of the 21st century. So at the end of the 20th century, we were heartened by very virtuous circles at the national level in which key countries in the Global South, India, South Africa, Brazil, for example, were examples of a combination of movements for democratization and the mobilization of labor. And those movements seem to be providing foundations for the possibility of building a more powerful transnational global labor movement. This generated hopes for what's called at the time the New Labor Internationalism, and a couple of examples of work in this perspective would be Ronaldo Buch's book, and the website and the Zoom fight. Okay, now in the 21st century, this millennial optimism had definitely eroded by the middle of the second decade. At the national level, the virtuous circles had lost momentum. There was a stagnation of both the democratic movements of these countries and a weakening of the labor movements. And so the national foundations to be eroded. Likewise, what seemed to be incipient possibilities for a U.S. labor movement becoming, as opposed to its previous role as in general an impediment to labor mobilization in the Global South, becoming an ally. But this hope receded in the second decade of the 21st century as the U.S. labor movement was further weakened domestically and seemed incapable of even sustaining its position domestically, saying nothing of contributing to an international movement. Likewise, European labor, which had been the core of an international labor movement, began to seem more inward-looking. Okay, now again, as in the case of the human rights movement, I would argue that while labor may not be beating global capital, it is still alive and fighting, and that it is also in a position in which it has very interesting possibilities for cross-group mobilization. A couple of quick examples of recent research on the global labor movement, which demonstrate, I think, its continuing potential. One's a book by Jamie Callum, which looks at the G4S campaign, organized security guards. Security guards are, of course, at the same time, the most rapidly growing profession in the globe, and also one of the poorly paid and precarious kinds of occupations in the globe. And McCallum documents the interaction of Teune, a global union, and national dynamics in various countries, particularly India and South Africa, to demonstrate how it is still possible to mount a global campaign against a very powerful adversary and, in fact, win recognition around the world. Another interesting example for me is recent work by Fox Otis, who is working on the IDC, the International Dock Workers Council, and shows how in what has been traditionally one of the core sectors of labor, the dock workers, that we have seen the emergence of a new rank-and-file-led organization, relying primarily on assembly and council-based decision-making, as well as mutual aid and industrial action, rather than bureaucratic decision-making, lobbying, and symbolic protest. So she is arguing for a revitalization of the practices and strategies within this traditional sector of global labor movement, and she also documents the fact that while this strategy is not universally successful, it is under certain circumstances, again, in the interaction with that labor movement, it has in fact been quite effective in combating what is a very powerful global industry. Okay, let's go back to this question of morphic movements and think about recuperating millennial euphoria. If we start again with the human rights movement and think about it as an ecology of movements, I think this is a much better way of trying to understand the potential of this movement. And I think this does have a lot of resonance or reverberation, the kind of perspective that you're talking about. That is to say, an ecology of movements combines different sorts of movements, different tactics and strategy, different geographical configurations in order to build what is not a single organization, but rather this combination, this ecology that fits together. And in the case of the Human Rights Organization, of the Human Rights Movement, we can see a putting together of economic, social, and cultural rights, traditional human rights. We can also see a combination of different acts, that is to say, disruptive direct action, combined in synergistic ways with effort at lobbying and persuading government. Okay, let's just look at two quick examples of this cross-movement collaboration and complementarity in the case of the human rights movement. One nice example is the victory of the Zajak Indians, located in Ecuador, against global oil and the Ecuadorian government. Now, the transnational human rights movement traditionally was not a movement about land rights. It was a movement about protecting people from oppressive and capricious governments intervening in their civil rights. In this case, however, the transnational human rights movement played a key role in the victory of indigenous land rights, which are traditionally considered to be a very different kind of social movement. That is to say, the Zajak Indians won their land rights where? In the Inter-American Court of Human Rights, and on the basis of a campaign led by a diverse coalition of Latin American human rights NGOs, who received signing the document. A quite similar case is the case of indigenous community lands in Peru. Again, these indigenous land rights were won on the basis of what is a quite traditional transnational human rights normative innovation. That is to say, transnational human rights advocates have worked for a long time to construct this global norm of prior consultation, which is to say that community groups must have the right to be consulted prior to the implementation of development projects that interfere with their land. And in the case of this, in this case, the prior consultation norm created by transnational human rights groups was combined with a state-building capacity at the national level. This is, of course, another example of the way in which transnational groups and national groups interlock in terms of building this ecology of movement. But in any case, we have a combination of a traditional sort of human rights norm building with a campaign on the part of an indigenous community, again, around what is essentially a land right kind of vision. Okay, so let's think about whether we can imagine the global labor movement as moving the direction of becoming an ecosystem of movement. There is at least one recent historical anomaly which illustrates the potential of this possibility. This is the defeat of the free trade area, the Americas, by an interesting coalition which was called the Alianza Social Conceptual, or the Hemispheric Social Alliance. And this was a diverse, multi-sector, north-south alliance of social movements. And for our purposes, and we see one of the many anti-free trade area in America's demonstrations. But our purposes, what is perhaps most interesting about this alliance is the fact that while it contained a wide variety of groups, labor groups, rural and indigenous groups, think tanks, environmentalist groups, etc., while it contained a wide variety of groups, in fact, it was the labor movement that played a key role in uniting, cementing, and providing the organizational sinews of this movement. Marissa von Bülow, whose work is probably the best work on the networks that comprise this movement, found that the Brazilian CUT, the Central Única dos Trabalhadores, and the AFL-CIO in the North were, in fact, groups most often named as closest allies by other groups in this broad, diverse alliance. So ASC or HSA, in my mind at least, constitutes a great example of transnational social movement as an ecosystem of movements, as an ecology of movements, which are differentiated and synergistically connected, and it is an example of this sort of ecosystem perception in which labor played a central role. So, to my mind at least, this illustrates the possibility of labor becoming part of an ecosystem and being much more effective, the result of that transformation. Okay, now there's another obvious possibility for the global labor movement to become part of an ecosystem. If we think about it, the majority of trade union members are women, in at least a third of the countries with adequate data, and are at least 40% in another third. This is Dorothy Sue-Cobble's data. So can labor become part of a feminist ecosystem of movements? I think this is not at all a fanciful vision. Feminist agendas reflect the interests of women workers and their families. Integrating workplace issues with community service and family issues makes sense in terms of the labor movement. And informal and precarious workers, which are the most rapidly growing category of workers in the world, are likely to be women. And so this creates the possibility of labor playing a central role in ecosystem of movements, which has a largely feminist orientation. And Sylvia Walby, of course, is a large promoter of this perspective, arguing that the labor movement is, in fact, the largest feminist organization in the world. This may be an exaggeration right now, but it is not a fanciful possibility at all. Okay, so here's one example of labor organizing, which is simultaneously feminist organizing, and that is, of course, these 6 various domestic worker organizations, transnational domestic worker organizations, and national organizations getting together to manage to put through ILO Convention 189. We could talk more about the exact dynamics and consequences of that victory, but it is definitely a victory in which was simultaneous labor victory and a feminist victory. So, I would like to argue that we move from the multitude to a vision of transnational social movements as ecosystems, geographically, substantively, strategically diverse, but statistically interconnected at the same time. And I would like to argue that, in fact, vision of ecosystems is far more plausible and makes much more sense than the vision of the undifferentiated, all-encompassing multitude that generated euphoria 20 years ago. So, I would argue that we should be thinking not from euphoria to skepticism, but instead of a movement toward a more sophisticated, positive vision of the possibility for cross-movement mobilization among social movements. So, with that, I will stop and look forward to your responses.
Thank you very much, Peter, for sharing your insights and your presentation with us, and also bringing in those very interesting examples from the Global South. And I thought this is fascinating how it fits to Dieter's presentation. You talking about ecosystems, Dieter talking about action systems. And so we can start now an interesting debate, so please stay with us. Dieter, can you please come in front? And we have time for 2 rounds of questions. We collect questions, and Peter, if you can't hear them, I will repeat the questions into the mic so that you can hear the questions, and then we collect a few, and then both of you can answer.
Is it possible for me to be able to see the podium?
Yes. Just turn it around and it works. Let's see. Can you see us? Can you see the room?
No, I can't. Maybe I have to stop.
No, hold on. I think we have to. Don't do anything. You're here. Don't get lost. It's just that we have to activate the camera.